Hi, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Guest Safety Officer Lobby Group. And we've got with us the Gary's here. Yeah, I know. There's not a lot really I can do about that. But he is good and he does know what he's talking about. But as you can see as well, I hope, we have got another superstar guest. Can't believe it. We've got Sarah Walker, who is literally, and I say this without any fear of being contradicted, a nighttime economy guru. I will let Sarah herself explain exactly what she does in a moment. But I just want to give a big shout out to all those people who've given us comments over the last week or so, and for all those of you that have since subscribed and decided to follow. Right, so first of all, Gary, yeah, if you could tell us what you do, that would be handy.
Oh, cheers, Ian. Thanks for the great intro once again. As everyone's starting to realise now, I've been in the industry for 37 years. I'm a security officer, close protection officer, trainer, and as I said, I've been doing it for 37 years. I'm not going to bore you with everything I've done, but I will bore you one thing quickly. I have just got back from a great course regarding understanding firearms and explosives in the security industry, but we'll save that for another day.
We most certainly will, Gary. See, if we ever need anything blowing up now, we know who to turn to, don't we?
I'm your man.
Right. Sarah, thank God we're finally talking about you.
Wouldn't go that far. Thanks, Ian. And really great to be here with both you and Gary today. So yeah, my name's Sarah Walker. I've got over 23 years experience working in the nighttime economy. Originally started my career path with the British Institute of Innkeeping, so working with licensed venues. I then moved on to manage and run the Best Bar None scheme. And from there, I moved on and ran the Purple Flag accreditation for town and city centres. Leaving there just over a year ago, I started my own consultancy up. So I've been doing, I can do nighttime economy audits, talk to people about movement within town centres, looking at how people use town centres, perception surveys, that sort of kind of thing. And then last year I started doing a project for the Mayor's Office, working for Safer Business Network, who are a business crime reduction partnership company based in London. So they're commissioned by the Mayor's Office to do this specific piece of work. So last year we carried out a research piece of work on the Women's Night Safety Charter as it stood, because obviously COVID got in the way in between all of this. So the contacts hadn't been upkept with signatories because things had changed. So we re-engaged with all the signatories to the charter at that point. There was just shy of 600, I think it was. Asking them what they wanted from the charter, what they wanted us to do about women's safety, and how we can move things on. So as I mentioned, we did a survey out to all the signatories. I did 3 focus groups. One was with Greenwich University students, one was with female staff from McDonald's Capital Archers Group, and the other one was talking to, as in your field, female security officers from Merlin Entertainment, asking them about their careers, how they find it as women in the industries that they work in, what things do they come up against, and where we can help, what changes we can make. So we reported this all back to the Mayor, as I say, in a report that was published last year. So I'm like a year behind here, sorry. So March last year, the report was published, and then I was gained permission through Safer Business Network to stay on, and the recommendations within that report I'm now delivering on. So just to give you an idea, so they asked us to create a steering group for the charter. So we've done that with the basis of some of the signatories across the board. There's around 14 of us that meet on a quarterly basis. It gives it grassroots representation for those that are working on the ground. So we're not some, high-flying board that sometimes things don't happen with. This is those that are involved in business, working and feeding back to us about women's safety. We've done we've done one summit. We're doing another summit on the 9th of March for those signatories that are signed to the charter. We've currently moved the signatory base to just shy of 1,100, which is fantastic news. We have got a target of 1,500 by the end of March, but we have got a couple of big organisations in the wings at the moment that hopefully will sign by then and push that up.
Sarah,
yeah.
So sorry, I just wanted to clarify. You know, when we talk about the mayor, we are talking about Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London's office, or is it the office of the Mayor of London?
The Mayor's office, yeah. So it's Sadiq's office.
Not one of the other regional mayors like Andy Burnham or Andy Street.
This is
the only reason I wanted to know is it all incorporated on a national basis now, or is it just London at the moment?
No, so yeah, I'm purely working for the Mayor's office, Sadiq Khan, and I work under Amy Lame, who's the Night Czar for London. So all the work I'm doing is purely for London. There are other charters out there. Bristol, Carly Heath is the Night Czar for Bristol. She's created a charter there. There's one in Staffordshire. There's one in Cardiff, in Wales. So they are springing up.
Good.
So the hope around this as we move forward, we're obviously nowhere near that yet. This would potentially become a national structure.
Yeah.
So that there will be cities with and towns with charters, and we can all meet and form and share best practice. You know, a lot of things people are doing doesn't get shared out. This is a big thing that I'm finding with our signatory base to the charter. There's a variety as signatories or any business and organisation that are based or work in London. So you could be based elsewhere, but the majority of your work is in London. You can still sign to the charter. So we've got an array of signatories, from licensed venues to security companies, to theatres, to various business and organisations that may be in the Shard. Mighty Security are one of them. So there's a huge array, and it doesn't stop with IKEA are talking to us. There's various people out there, so it can be anybody from any size business. There's no faults or anything. It's anybody. It encompasses everybody, and that's what we're trying to do here, because we want to encompass everybody when we talk around safety. So we talk about
Gary, what about you? You're down in London. Why don't you sign up? Yeah.
Well, we will definitely sign up. It's quite interesting because we also done a survey ourselves. We sent it out on social media for 500 females. We asked them a number of questions. I just flick through. We asked things like, how safe do you feel on a night out? What factors make you feel safe? What do you think the venue or security can do to provide a safer environment? And that's just some of the questions we moved out and we got answers for, which we'll fly back those later on in the show. But that's what we got some quite interesting answers from how young females and older females feel when they do go out as well.
Yeah, and it's very different. The age demographic is very, very different on how comfortable they feel when they're using the nighttime economy and in what capacity they're using the nighttime economy as well. And as I say, when we did some of the focus groups, you know, there's a huge majority of people work the nighttime economy, and they do get sort of forgotten in a way. So they are the ones that are travelling home at ridiculous hours of the morning, where, you know, public transport might not be as busy as it is during the day and things like that. So it's as you say, it's age demographic. The use of the nighttime economy affects people in lots of different ways.
So you say you've done the survey, you've published it. There you are now. You're head of you're now leading the charter.
I'm leading the charter for London.
So you're leading the charter for London, which is, you know, I mean, how many people are in London? Only 10 million people that you're representing, I think, there or thereabouts. No pressure, Sarah. None at all. Yeah. So
no, it's
how have you moved it forward?
So as I say, we've done summits. It's growing the signatory base and talking to people about the safety. as the mayor does perception surveys, and lots of towns and cities across the UK do perception surveys, and that applies to London. You know, we work with business improvement districts, we work with all the London authorities. So there's a huge mixture of people involved, and it's what people do on an individual basis and what we can vocalise as well nationally, as well as what the mayor does. So the mayor is currently working on his, as you know, he did the hashtag Have a Word campaign that came out, which was amazing, and he's won, well, they've won numerous awards for that campaign, and it resonated with a lot of 18-year-olds. It was the younger demographic that I think that really picked that up. I showed my daughter, and she said it's groups of males and their behaviour to females, but even those females that are friends within the group, and no one calls it out, and no one says, come on guys, you know, enough's enough. So his campaign there, I think, was brilliant, and it really resonated, and we use that all the time. It's one of the ones that we like to talk about. Besides the Scottish one, they're all out there and they're all serving their purpose. So we work along with that, and we promote that through the work we do. We also offer training to signatories. There's a whole heap of training out there. We're just about to run some sessions of free training for signatories on bystander, what it is to be a champion, and what you should be doing as a champion once you sign to the charter. We're doing some around comms and how you messaging out and how you should be promoting campaigns and messaging. So there's loads going on. We even can do events on a localized, if someone in a localized area in London wants to have a women's safety event, I can go along and speak at that and talk about the work that we're doing at the charter. And this is only going to grow. I'm just in the very early stages of talking to a football club. There at the moment, they're really passionate. They want to bring more women back into football, you know, especially as the England players are doing extremely well, and women's football is now being recognised more. So we're going to be working with some of the football clubs in London in promotion of women's safety and things that they can do and make people feel that they can go to a game without something sexist being said, or, you know, feeling uncomfortable within what is normally a male-dominated area. So there's loads going on, which I'm really excited about. And you know, just to tell women, but you know, I'm referencing women's safety here a lot because the work I'm doing for London is around women's safety. The charter is the Women's Night Safety Charter, but I will stress this encompasses everybody, all groups, all people. We're out there to make this change for everybody. You know, we're seeing it with racism and, as I said, misogyny, you know, where the attacks that the LGBTQ community get as well. We want to change all this. So this is about everybody and working towards that change.
I think so. I don't know what Gary's got to say, but certainly your enthusiasm, you know, your energy that you've obviously got for this subject, to, you know, springing forth. You know, what do you think, Gary?
Yeah, definitely. I'm fully supportive of this, and I've been for many years. Not just on the female side or women's side, but also all genders and all sides. My biggest thing is, you know, when we're trying to re-educate people, we've got so many groups and different people, and everyone's got their own ideas. And I always find it's easy to nationalise stuff because the work you're doing is great. But as you said, there's people doing stuff in Cardiff, people doing something, and it becomes splintered. And at the end of the day, I know it does need to be split down or filtered down to the people for education. Being in the security industry for years and years and years, I mean, I was one of the old time, let's use that word loosely again, bouncer.
No.
I did just use it. Sorry. Yeah. So, but all the people I worked with over the years, especially the old school guys and girls, they were very, very, very top priority on female safety. Absolutely. I mean, I can't say all the people I've worked with over the years, a lot of them have left and passed on and gone and done other stuff. But female safety was always a strong point from the old school days. And I think it got lost at some point, you know, when the changeover, when the introduction of licenses came over, and the education side of understanding people's safety got lost there.
But I think also you're saying it's got lost. But I think we also accepted behaviour, and that was
Oh,
a big change. And as you know, I've said, so things that we sort of brushed aside when I was growing up, if you were wolf whistled at or anything like that, we just sort of ignore it or brush it aside. We never spoke out about it because it wasn't the done thing. And I think that's where we're seeing the millennials coming through. And my daughter's fit into this demographic. As I said, she's 19. They're calling it out. Enough's enough.
oh,
And this behaviour.
yeah.
So I think we normalised and made it acceptable over a period of time when we should never have done that. But that's the way that things happened, and that's the way the culture changed. So you are right. So I think women's safety it was a key part, but then it sort of lost its way
Oh,
in
absolutely.
normalisation of something that
I
should never
think
have been normalised.
it's but and again, because I think it's really important that we, that we don't forget or move away from it. Women's safety is paramount. I don't know. I can only speak for myself as a male. Sadly, I wish I had the ability to be, more chameleon-like in my gender, but I'm not. The bottom line that I found was that there is nothing worse for a man than to be accused or to feel as though that they are threatening towards a woman. Ever since that's the way I was brought up, you always treat women with respect, etc., etc., and that is the way I was brought up, and that is the way I know most blokes are in general. Now,
But
is there another switch?
Hang on,
That's all I want to say. Just then, now shut up, Gary. Is that all I will say is that the banter, as it's called, which clearly it isn't, depending on whether you're receiving it or not, that has got to change, and that can only change through education. Sorry, Gary.
Yeah, well, also it's going to highlight that point. I mean, on our survey, we one of the questions we asked: what factors make you feel unsafe? And some of the lines we got back were the possibility of being attacked by a man, indirect harassment by older men. I hope that's not you, Ian. What was that one here? And past experiences of being harassed by men, and that's come up on our survey which we done. So that's 3 points which came up, and that's from the female perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I think when we've done surveys out, you're right, they're generalized comments that are fed back. And it's an interesting thing. I mentioned this to Ian before, and we go with age demographics, and you look at men's behaviour. So if there was a woman walking down a street at night on her own, and you spoke to an 18-year-old, he would probably say to you, I know that she'd probably feel uncomfortable, so I would cross the road so it doesn't feel like I'm following her. But if you ask the same question to someone in their 60s, 70s, they wouldn't think anything of following the woman because they don't feel that they're doing anything wrong, or they're not making her uncomfortable. So that's where the education comes in, I think, as well. Because it's different perspectives on different ages. And it doesn't mean that the older generation are doing anything wrong, because they're not. But it's understanding how a woman feels. And I think that came out, and I've spoken to lots of men around this of all different ages of the work that we're doing. And that's a point that came out, is if they see a woman on her own who looks vulnerable for whatever reason, whether she's lost her friends or her mobile's died, but she's on her own, how should they approach her? They themselves don't know how to necessarily approach a female. If she's very upset, they don't want to feel that she's going to think, well, they're just coming over to do something else. So that's come up as well in how men should approach women if they see them in a situation that they know that they're not great in. So I think that's a really valid point as well, and something else that we need to take on board and work with, and on how we talk. We sort of get that messaging out to men that it is okay if a woman's on her own, how they do approach that scenario. So there's lots to take on board. I think it's quite a big area.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very big area. I mean, for my career, I mean, I've literally I've found vulnerable females, and I've managed to find out their parents, and I've literally driven them home myself at some points, and met and greet their parents on the door and handed their daughter back to them. And that was before Uber and bits and pieces like that. We had a recent case on one of the venues where we got staff out. We had a vulnerable female. We managed to get into her phone, speak to her father, and then put her in an Uber. And we monitored the Uber all the way home. And when she got home, we even spoke to the father and said, "The Uber's outside. Can you meet and greet?" And great bit of kit. And there he was, and he was so grateful. But we got his daughter home for her. Sorry.
Yeah, and this is a really valid point. And whether we're talking in the regards of safety officer here or security officer, however we want to, not using the word doorman, I'll throw it in there, but and bouncers, but in general, the guys and girls that work in security are the eyes and ears. They see things way before any of us do. So training's vital for them, that they're up to speed with everything. Who I do the work with for Safer Business Network, they train the welfare and vulnerability wave engagement training, as well as the Ask for Angela. And again, it's quite prominent in the security industry that they deliver quite a lot of this training in the security industry, and it's just teaching them around. I don't know if you yourselves have seen the wave training, but I get goosebumps each time I see it. It's very, very impactful, but delivers Absolutely. What they need to see. And as I said, they're the eyes and ears before many of us see anything. So it's looking and understanding what vulnerability looks like, because it comes in all shapes and forms. It's not necessarily someone sobbing in a corner. It could be someone that seems potentially really happy, but there's other underlying issues. So there's lots of different things that I think they need to take on board. And, sometimes we don't give security officers the credit they deserve, because they're out there watching out for people. Things have moved on. And they have to be trained to the nines, don't they, now to work in the industry. And I think that's vitally important. But they should be proud of the work they do. When I mentioned before, I did these interviews, focus groups, and I spoke to some female security officers for Merlin. They were so enthusiastic about their job and what they do, and they said they're approached by other women saying, "I didn't even realise this is a career path. It's so lovely to see female security officers out there." And I know I've mentioned to Ian previously, you as a female, you go to the job centre, they're going to direct me to an admin role or beauty therapy, something along those lines. It's very genderized. Why would they not point me to some working in security? It's not just about being on a door somewhere. The roles are huge, as you work in the industry. There's no career. We don't shout about a career path in that industry. And I think it opens so many avenues, and it's an area I think we really should do some more promotion around, especially for children at school, in secondary schools. I think they probably don't even know that there's these sort of jobs out there, and I think having them knowing all that information would make a huge difference as well.
I think one of the biggest problems, though, Sarah, is it's all about perception, which is why, as you know, I am adamant about getting rid of the using the term guest safety officer in all cases where you have someone who is customer facing, i.e. a nightclub, a festival, etc. So it doesn't matter whether you're a licensed SIA individual or you're a steward at a festival. You are mixing with the public. You are the eyes and ears. You can see, and the expectations that are placed upon us now or on those individuals, legal requirements, are immense. And therefore, when we call people bouncers, doormen, and we just dehumanize them. And in that dehumanization, you reduce the impact that their authority can contain to de-escalate issues early. Because what am I listening to you for, mate? You're just a bouncer. What do you know? It's a confrontational issue straight away. But whereas if I'm a guest safety officer who's here to help you, which I am, and we do love doing it. We get paid nothing in reality for the thing. Then let's make that a much more pleasant interchange between the respective parties. That's why I'm pushing for this. But anyway, Gary, what's your view?
No, I agree with that. We do need more females in the industry. It's
Yeah.
Even on the side where I'm out consulting or even working on the ground with people, having a good female officer on the ground de-escalates a hell of a lot of stuff. And also it helps when you're dealing with vulnerable females. It's great because it takes that whole edge of and then and the rest of it. As we go back to the training, the whole thing, there's that whole negative side that with vulnerable females meant, like he only wants me for this. No, we are there to help. But if you've got a decent female on the ground, it really changes the ball game, and you can help that. It breaks down the barriers and makes life a lot easier to deal with.
Maybe you should do a piece in around following some safety officers out and about, sort of do a promotional sort of what the job entails sometimes in different forms.
We'd
like
love
following
to.
like a day in the life of the safety officer. In around a sort of an educational piece, both you and Gary saying, I think it's really important that people understand the career out there and what it entails, because each role within security is very, very different. And there's lots, my friend started off, she's a security officer at Blue Water, but she started off just, in working on the front desk, and she liked what she saw, but she would never have seen that if she hadn't worked there. She would never have seen what the role the guys do, and how it's not just about checking that the customers are safe. It's it's how the staff are being looked after. Shops when they're shut, they meet all the requirements with the alarms, and it's watching that area and it's secure. So there's a lot more huge to the job. It's not just about her running after someone because they've stolen out of a shop, but it's the presence of them there, and people do approach them. I've done it. I've gone up to a security officer in a shopping centre and asked them where something is. They know everything. They know around that area. They know everything, and they're great. We see them when they're out at in the nighttime economy. They know the area. They know the perimeters around the venues that they're working in. They know where to guide people to stop congestion when clubs and pubs kick out. They're everything. I think they're a vital component of the nighttime economy and daytime economy. We see retail using them all the time now because of the abuse on retail staff. So security are drafted in to support staff. The roles are huge.
Absolutely,
it's amazing.
I just don't think we talk about it enough.
No, 100%. But getting back a little bit on track. We'll talk about Ask Angela. That's a very good thing. I was one of the first people to get the videos and what have you from I think City of London Police gave it to me many years ago. As you say, it's a very, very good. It's hard hitting. When I first showed it to my team and some of the clients I work for, when you start showing those videos, people wake up and they realise about the vulnerability of females being out on the ground in bits and pieces, and it's quite it's quite shocking for some people. I think it's a little bit outdated now, and also I feel that we should be looking at better training now for people out on the ground.
It has been updated, Gary. It was updated about a year ago. So the Met Police have got it now. So they've got the Wave and Ask for Angela. So the Ask for Angela posters and stuff that you see in a lot of venues and shopping centres and stuff, where you can go up and say the code word Angela, they've been sort of updated. So before they were very female sort of posters, and we sort of changed them, and they look quite funky, but it's for everybody. The code word is for anybody in a situation that they need to get out of, or they need support. So that's the Ask for Angela campaign. But the Wave side has been updated. So the videos, I think the videos are still the same, but we show them in 2 parts during the training. But the training's been updated. So we talk about drink spiking within that training as well now. and that sort of side of stuff. But we are looking, that training will be coming online. That's being worked on at the moment. So that's a watch this space, because people will be able to do it online. And also we're looking at how we can change it depending on what industry you work in. Taxis and private hire are quite keen on it as well. And it still works the very same way, because it's about spotting vulnerability.
Yeah.
But we just need to address it from the videos it is now, because they're centered around licensed venues. So
Right.
it would be changing the environment that you work in, but that's not to say that's not going to happen moving forward. So yeah, it has been updated in sort of the last, I think, 2 years. And so, but we're Beth at Safer Business Network, who delivers the training, the Wave and Arthur Andrew training, she's fully booked. She's delivering it here, there and everywhere, and it is branching further out of London now. It's going to other places in the UK, which is great. And I was on a call yesterday for Purple Flag, as I'm still part of the panel that assess the accreditations, and they use it in Australia.
That's brilliant news.
Yeah.
So it's gaining its, they were really pleased with the campaign and took it over there. So I think that will gain memento. And I think where we had others that sort of diverted it a little bit, because there was Ask for Clive, and it never really took off. And I don't think people really understood all the different. And then someone else tried to, I think there was another one about you go up and ask for a type of drink. But obviously, if you're intoxicated, that's not going to necessarily, you're going to remember what type of drink you should be asking for, and that sort of thing. So that the Ask for Angela is going to be the one that encompasses everybody, I think, as we move forward, and will be the code word for everybody, and making life more simplistic, I think, as well, when we deliver training. But you're right. But as I say, it's the right training for the right individual, depending on who that is.
Yeah. Have you heard of the Good Night Out campaign?
Yes. So they created the original toolkit for the charter. So when the charter was formed back in 2018, Good Night Out, they did the toolkit for the charter. So right. Yes, we work really closely with them. They're a signatory to the charter, and we support them in what they do. And we've got links. That toolkit that I talked about was originally a printable, downloadable document for signatories. So we've now made that online and interactive. It's through a porthole for signatories, and with that is a whole reef of support, and links to Good Night Out campaign and other associations as well. Susie Lamplugh Trust are on there. There's links to them because there's training that they deliver. All array of support out there. So yeah, they're good to be involved with.
Right, because they're saying, which I'm speaking to a couple of their people at the moment, which is I was quite impressed with some of the stuff and some of their training they were doing. So it's quite interesting what it's doing. But what would be nice is we do talk about training a lot here, and being a trainer. It would be nice if we can start bringing it all together into one sort of thing, rather than all these little bits and pieces. Because, as you say, we do need to re-educate people. It's constantly re-education out there and putting things in place. So, men aren't, as you say, wolf whistling anymore. I mean, I haven't heard that in years or seen it in years, but it probably still does go on. I remember my wife telling me when she was a schoolgirl getting on the trains, and great men groping her up when she was in a school uniform, bits and pieces, and nothing was said at that time in those years. So yeah, just how do we re-educate these people? How do we re-educate men? How we discussing that, and what stage do we start re-educating them at?
So yeah, the mayor is working on this at the moment, the mayor's office for London, and there will be something coming out very shortly. I'm not involved in that piece of work, so I can't really comment. But I know they're looking at education in sort of, I think it's beginning of secondary school maybe, or very late primary school. So just as they're going up to secondary school, on misogyny and calling it out, and how to call it out, and it's acceptable to call it out. So I think that's a really positive move, and at the end of this, we hope that parents will also back this at home, because if your parents don't back what you're being taught, it disjoints it slightly. So we're hoping, as we're not going to see a change for a while, because this has got to embed and this has got to move forward. But I think over the years we should start to see a change where people do call things out and they're not afraid to call things out. I think this is where I'll refer back to bystander intervention training. It's not about you jumping into a situation and putting yourself at risk. It's a very simple, piece of training. And you could be on the tube in London, and you probably know, and I know, we notice when people look vulnerable. And even if they're not, just by asking a very, very simple question, like, does this train go to Paddington, or, am I on the right line for XYZ? If that person is being harassed or sexually followed, any sort of situation, because we've engaged with them, the offender will pull back because he's noticed that he or she's noticed someone's clocked them. So
Yeah.
I think that's really important. The bystander part really works. So as I say, we're not about jumping in feet first and waving our arms around and threatening everybody. It's very, very simple measures. So I think that as well will follow. It's out there now. As I mentioned, the Susie Lampley Trust do bystander training,
Right.
Which we're going to be delivering as part of being signatory to the Charter over the next couple of months. But it's there, that they're a support mechanism. Use them, that they can deliver the training for you. And I think it's very, very simple steps into changing the culture that we're in.
Right. So just to say point, so these things like the Susie Lampley Trust, that's already out there and available for people like myself to get involved with, other companies to grab hold of and put into their staff. So that's already out there. Will we be able to get these links for that, Ian? Put that out there.
I can send them on to Ian for you. Yeah,
that'd be brilliant if we could get these out to people, and we could just them out and start putting it out there, because it's very important we have an understanding of this. And again, I train a lot of people out there, and having this information at hand and pass it on educates people and things. But on another point, on the same sort of thing, we've got cultural differences as well. I mean, London being so diverse, I mean, how are we going to be looking at that situation? I mean, London is a melting pot of literally different cultures and religions and everything.
Yeah, they have to take everything on board, and as you say, and that affects the different behaviours as well. They may not experience from different cultures the experiences that we have. They're all very, very different, and racism and other things play a part in that. So as I say, as I've mentioned, it's about encompassing everything. When we did the survey out to signatories, not too much came back on that side. We obviously know it's there, and we obviously know it's rife. But as I say, this is what this is the side the mayor's delivering on. So I'm not sort of involved in that. Mine's more around making sure that people are signed to the charter and that they're delivering with it internally within organisations as well as outside of businesses and organisations, that they're doing the right thing, that the staff are receiving the right training, and we're able to support through various measures that we've got in place, and making that change. But it's all on board, and it's all being developed as we speak.
I think I just wanted to know, to sort of bring it to it. And there's a program, the Inverclyde are running a program, MVP, mental violence prevention, MVP. I can't remember the exact name on it, but that goes back to what we were talking about, educating at school, where they have they have basically school children acting as mentors to younger children about what is and isn't appropriate behavior as you transition from one learning environment, primary, junior school, onto the next, so that we start to inculcate the necessary behaviors going forward. Because by the time we get to, we're all off to the pub for a night out with Mrs. Miggins, and then unfortunately, we're already there. It's this whole process has got to be, pulled back right to the beginning. I don't know. Am I wrong?
It's just a really big picture, isn't it? And we are right. We know that it's got to come from earlier years. How early that we're allowed to go is decided by government and the schools. But and as I mentioned before, the parents have to back this at home as well. This isn't, we can educate, but the education stops when they leave that building. But while they're in education, my daughter said to me, "You wouldn't believe what goes on at school," which is quite horrifying, that I probably didn't really want to hear, but it's not something we can shy away from. So there is a lot that goes on at school. And she said, you know, to me, you know, you'd be horrified at what some of the children get up to, what they're involved in. And we know county lines is a big problem, and that's going into the even younger children now. It's growing. So there's lots of sort of factors that I think we have to take into consideration, which is way above my, you know, my head.
Pay grade, yeah.
Yeah, it's government level, but there's lots more to be done. But you know, I'm talking to someone who lives locally to me, who he does the Guardian's platform app for British Transport Police.
Yeah.
And he's got this amazing app that's involved in a platform that's going into schools currently. He's got into a couple, but they need to look at how this is going to be funded as we move forward, because obviously schools have no money. But it's a reporting mechanism for students at school and children. Bullying's rife, but as soon as they're reporting it, so if they're facing an issue, let's for argument's sake, near the toilet block, they can go onto this app and report it, and it maps it. So the teachers at particular times of the day know to spend more time in a particular area, and things like that. And this is all stuff that's new, that's being done now, and it's an amazing piece of work. And he's at a local school to us, and he stopped something a little while ago that could have been quite detrimental by this being in place. So there are lots of things going on behind the scenes, but I think the education piece is a big piece. And as I say, I don't think we'll see changes dramatically quickly. I think it will be, as generations move forward over periods of time, how we embed and then change the culture that we're currently living in.
I think you're right there. I mean, one of the most shocking things that's happened recently to me recently is I was thinking about this before we sort of spoke about what you were doing education wise here, and so I thought, I know, I'll have a petition, and because you know I'm daft like that, and I'll do anything, try anything. So I said a petition where we were going to put first aid, the care certificate, and spectator safety. I wanted to see those put in at the earliest possible stages in the curricula, because if then the earlier they take it, by the time they reach 15, 16 years old, they've got a grounding in almost everything that is a critical issue for us now, looking after old people, how to manage yourself within the avoiding conflict resolution, or sorry, not avoiding it, but knowing how to use conflict resolution properly, how to do the right thing, the power of hello, saying
which
hello,
is what we've been talking about,
which is what you were talking about with the previous earlier, all of these things. And the government said, oh no, sorry mate, can't do that, you're it's down to the heads. Well, these are vital things. I can't understand why it's not the responsibility of the government, the education department, to turn around and say, this is so important, it needs to be done now, so that in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, sexism, misogyny, all of these things will always continue, because the eternal conflict and attraction between men and women, there'll always be some measure of it, but at least it will frame it, and people will know what is and isn't acceptable. I don't know. I'd love to see people like yourself and Amy, push this forward, this kind of thought forward. But
Amy is
crazy.
pushing it. She does push it forward, and obviously with Sadiq, but different government in currently. Obviously, we won't get political and stuff because we can't really. But my own personal view, which I will stress is my own personal view, was Rishi Sunak the other week when he mentioned about 18-year-olds staying on and doing maths for another period and stuff. Why? You know, life skills are a vital important component, and as parents we can only teach them so much. You know, they go off and learn and do what they want, and schools can teach them so much, but life skills are such a vital importance to children. You know, they leave school and they don't know how to open a bank account. So many things that we could teach them in a life skills lesson. Really, do we need maths? You know, I never got maths. I'm quite proud to admit I never got maths back in the day. I've never done a career that, you know, that it's affected me that I haven't got maths. I can do the basics of maths. I can use an Excel spreadsheet now, and I can use my calculator. But I've never wanted to be an accountant or a professor in something. So I think, you know, I think we need to weigh up exactly. Yes, I think you need basic maths. Everybody needs a basic maths, but you're taught that in primary school. You're taught your times tables, you know, how to add, subtract and divide. The very basics are there, and I think they need to be there. But do we need algebra? This could all be replaced by a life skills lesson or training or in education in some way. Whether that will ever change in the future, I don't know. But that's, as I say, that's my personal view on this. I think we could be doing a lot more than teaching our children that maths is the way to go.
Right. Well, I'm voting for Sarah at the next election. What about you, Gary?
Never going into that.
I want to go back to that point you made about your colleague in the BTP and having this app. One of the things which came up on our survey is having a better system in play when it comes to barring people who have sexually harassed or assaulted people in a venue. That sounds quite an interesting app, because a lot of the things, places I work or people I consult with, they have the what's called the scan machines. If the guest safety officer is dealing with that at that point, it's very hard. You can't get ID or details of a person. If they, you know, you can't force them to give you the details, even though they've been scanned in. Trying to find that person is a bit of a pain, and then putting a black mark or a red mark on them can be a pain. If they had something on their phones which they could quickly go bang, got it. I mean, I know data protection might be a problem here, but we'll be able to log it. Could be an interesting thing to look at further down the path to sort of assist these things. And also, you know, if you've got these people who are offending, you know, if we could log it and then guide them in the right direction of, you know, maybe you do need to have some training yourself or put them in paths.
Yeah, so I was saying, well, Mark from a company called Imabi, he's done the British Transport Police Guardians app. So he's the guy behind the scenes that does the app and gets it all working. But yeah, it's probably worth a conversation with him. And obviously this is way out of my league, and how that would work in GDPR, but it's worth the conversation to have. I'm just wondering, I suppose it's a bit like where the business crime reduction partnerships use DISC and Sentry Sys, and they record people that steal from shops and things like that. I'm wondering if it's I'm wondering if you mean something on a similar line to that, where we can show who.
Yeah, it's like anything. It's logging and recording, and also we want to try and deter these people from doing what they're doing, isn't it?
Mm.
It's deterring that whole thing, whether it's male, female, transgender, whatever. It's deterring that. Yeah. If they realise we've got systems in play which record stuff, it doesn't need to necessarily get that person, but it's like, you know, it's like we put body worn cameras on staff. That deters a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it does.
Violence down. It brings not only the staff have to start thinking how they're speaking because they're on camera, but also down to the customer or the person you're dealing with. You know, it changes their perception. They suddenly drop their levels down because they know that it's evidential, it's been recorded. If there's systems in play, I mean, I know some venue operators be like, "Oh, we don't really want that because we want this because we want to turn over bits and pieces." But systems in play prevent stuff. You know, again, like putting covers over drinks prevents spiking. Bits and pieces like that. Just prevention is sometimes better than cure. And all these things, if you're preventing it, people walk away. It's like when people see proper searches being conducted at an event or festival, people rock up and they go, "Oh, they're doing proper searching there," and they go and either lose their stuff or they dump it, then they come in, or they don't bother turning up at all. It's just putting these systems in place where If we're education, again, signage, ask Angela Wave signage, because people see this stuff and they go, right, these people, this venue operator switched on, this event switched on. If we had something, you know, I'm not saying an app, or we've got saying we do record this sort of stuff, and if we do, etc., it's preventative and also it's educational at the same time.
Yeah, it's how we link it all up, isn't it?
Yeah.
The training that you've done, it's maybe around signage within the venue and things like that, but it's also how you work with the other venues. So it's a bit like a sort of a pub watch, or however you're going to do it. In that, you know, that person, if you expel it from him or her from one venue, they don't move on to another venue. You're all on the same. Yeah, it's probably worth another conversation of today on how maybe how we could do that, you know, and I can quite happily have a chat with Mark on that, and on how we move forward with the support within venues for people, through the door staff.
So there was an app a few years ago where you gambling. So if you're a gambler, you could register yourself as a self ID so that you could get yourself stopped from going into a casino. There obviously were the pub watch photos, etc., that you could have at venues that would come in a folder, etc. At the time, you know, from there. I actually designed an app for age verification a few years ago, which also incorporated the ability to do the things that you're asking, Gary. However, you know, the technology when I designed it, me always being like miles ahead of where I should be. So although I had a couple of meetings with the couple of chiefs of police, and I met with Andy Parsons on a couple of occasions, who was the Home Office guru for age verification at the time, you know, I didn't have the dollar to be able to do it, but the technology exists to be able to do everything that's being asked, but it does have to always be tempered within the context of GDPR, you know, and that you can't go having stuff accessible to all without there being some real proof that a problem could exist. Does that you can't just say, oh yeah, well, Sarah's banned because she did this, because I might not agree, and Sarah probably almost certainly won't agree.
I think Gary's right, and I think, you know, I think we need to encourage venues and door supervisors, whoever we're going to, you know, security officers, safety officers. I think we need to encourage more to talk and display that they've done training, and as Gary said, and use that within buildings so that they're all trained up and they know what they're doing. They're looking at it, because it stops that perpetrator, for whatever reason, from going in. So I think perhaps we need to look at how we encourage businesses to do that, you know, because we can all check and see, oh yeah, they've done their SIA or whatever it may be, but I think most of them go above and beyond that, and they're involved in lots of other forms of training, you know, to better themselves within their career. So you are right, and we don't talk about that enough, and I think that's something that's happened over term. You just sort of keep things to yourself, don't you? And that's what we do. I think that we definitely need to evolve on that, and how we advertise that, as we move forward to stop perpetrators from coming in. You know, and there's work that the police do. I know Oxford did quite a huge piece of work with the police, and the police went in undercover. I think they had significant rise in sexual harassments within a few of the venues at night, and they went in undercover. So undercover, they can detain, but they can't do anything. So they go in undercover, and I think they caught a number of perpetrators. I think we're looking in the double digits. So they detain them, and then they call uniform in who come and take them away. but one of them was a prolific offender. And it was an amazing piece of work they did, really interesting piece of work, but obviously it's manpower and resource and lots of other things involved in this. But I think when there's a significant issue that we know of happening in an area, I think we have to pull in and work in partnership to change that. But there's some really, really good pieces of best practice that are out there. And this is one of the things I'm really keen with the charter, that we share best practice. You know, everyone goes away and says, oh, I'm really good at creating something, but generally it's out there. Don't create something that's already out there that's working really well and doing really well. It's charters. Amy is so supportive of other areas writing charters, and use the London one, but just recognise that you've used the London one and you've taken it, but you can run away and use it and create one in your area. And I think it's vitally important that we continue to share best practice and advertise and talk about the resources that are out there. There's a whole, as I say, as a signatory to London's Women's Charter, there's a whole reef of information and signposting and help that we can point people in. But we need them to be signatories to do that, because it contains within all the work that we're doing. But one of the other things we're also looking at within Safer Business Network is safe havens. So this is someone that's vulnerable in maybe their phone's died, they've lost their friends, and it's for a business or organisation that's open in the period that that they're allowed to operate in. So there's no effect to insurances and stuff, and they can become a safe haven. They don't need to be triaged. It's the very basic to help someone with their onward journey. So say your mobile phone's died, you'll be able to look for a safe haven in the window, go in there, and you'll know that you'll be able to charge your mobile phone, and they'll be able to help you with your onward journey, whether that's calling a cab, meeting up with your friends, parents being called to come and help, that sort of thing. So as I say, if someone comes in with their head split open because they've had a fall, that's still a 999 call. That's not what Safe Haven's there, but it's just to help support people that may be vulnerable, just maybe need a little bit of support with their onward journey. But they'll also have information around support out there for mental health and other organisations should they need it. So we're also looking at trialling that in one of the boroughs of London at the moment. So that will be another support mechanism that will be out there.
Is there any other initiatives that you're involved in that we've missed? Or have we,
I think we've talked about a lot of what we're involved in. You've just got to remember there is a lot out there. And a lot of the time it's knowing it's out there and where it is. But I'm happy to share some links with you. Ian, I'll email them over today, and you can add them along with this podcast and share them out. They're free to share out, and people can have conversations and book on training and organise training and just for general support as well that's out there should they need it.
Well, I think that's great, and just obviously, as ever, I'm going to get into trouble. I've been told to keep these podcasts short, and they get, unfortunately, interesting. You're interesting. You shouldn't have been interesting. I'm going to blame you, Sarah. Yeah, you were too interesting for your own good. So we're on an hour. But the good thing about this is you do get a little bit more depth, and we can explore things in a little bit more depth, which is a great word, which is obviously why it's in the dictionary. Anyway, the long and the short of it is this. My takeaways, I'll give in a minute, but Gary, what are your takeaways from this?
Well, my takeaways are there's training out there, which I don't think it's out there, which we need to disseminate to the staff and to the people out there. It's very, very important to understanding vulnerable people, not just women out on the ground. It is out there, and you've got all these bits and pieces available to us, and re-educating the guys and girls out on the ground, and especially for guest safety officers, keep them re-educated, to keep them on top of their game, because at the end of the day, it is about the guest safety officers, it is about the nighttime economy, and about us making sure that everybody gets home safely. They have a great time, get home safely, and they can come back the next day knowing that wherever they go in London or anywhere in the UK, they can have a great time and know that there's skilled, trained people available to them, and they can get them home.
For me, my takeaway is, after listening to what Sarah said, let's not reinvent the wheel. Yeah, you know, that doesn't mean don't look and see if we can put rubber tires on the wheel or whatever, but the wheel's the wheel. So let's just focus on that and then build on top if need be, but not try and build a new wheel entirely. The other thing is to do with the training, because the other thing, Sarah, that I don't think is fully appreciated by all the agencies is that every bit of training, whether it's free or whatever, has a cost to those people working in the nighttime economy, because invariably they have to pay for it themselves. And there's not all of it, but they pay, either they have to take time off work, or they have to actually pay for the training themselves, as in top-up training with the SIA. And finally, please use all your influence, your superstar influence, to tell people that calling or allowing people to be called bouncers isn't good for business. It creates a climate of fear. It creates a wrong atmosphere. It creates the whole. It puts the whole venue. What did you employ bouncers? Who employs bouncers? There isn't a venue I know that would employ anybody who would dress themselves as a bouncer, an doorman, you know, basically, you know, some big thug in a tuxedo. No, we are so much more than that now. And all the things that you think, and we're expected to be so much more. So please, can you use that?
Yeah, we'll keep spreading
influence.
the message and changing the wording.
Good. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Sarah, I was right. You are a superstar. Yeah, but next time, don't talk so much, or more to the point, don't be so interesting. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
No, thanks very much for having me. Pleasure.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you again, maybe, when you've got your next project or anything else you want to talk to about. Please just let us know. We'll have you on straight away. Yeah.
No, thank you. Well, hopefully I'm staying on and doing some more work with the charter over the next sort of 6 months, year. So that's positive. So, but happy to come back and talk at any time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sarah. Bye, everyone. See you later, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.